Hello and welcome to GM Tips. This is GM Rick coming at you again. Hope everybody's had a great week, had a great time to enjoy themselves and prepare for a gaming session. And part of preparing this week, I wanted to go into are the Blood of Outsiders, as I'll call it. And these can be used again in any campaign system. They tend to be used most in Dungeon World, D&D, and Pathfinder. However, they are available for most systems if you want to convert them. Now, what are the Blood of Outsiders? It's the blood of Aasimar, which are the outsider, basically angels. You have the blood of the Tieflings, and they're basically tainted blood, as people would say, since they are more demonic, daemonic, and diabolical type of creatures. You also have the blood of shadows, which are the half shadow type creatures, often in the Underdark and other places. And then you've got the blood of the night and the blood of the moon, which are the vampires and their ilk, including the Dhamphir, and the werewolves and their half-bloods, which are the not changelings, but yay, I'm blanking. The Skinwalkers. So all of these are different types of bloods that you can use either as a GM running an NPC, or it can be as, there we go, play all for the mini GM, and or they can be used as player characters. So either one can use these type of creatures. My recommendation with all of it is get to know more about them, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is what do we need to know about the different bloods. Now, some of this is going to come from my iPad because I have the blood of fiends from Pathfinder on here, as well as the Inner Sea Race Guide and other player guides. Now, again, Dungeons & Dragons has done something that I wish they wouldn't have done, but they did it for the simplicity of playing. They have made the Tiefling a Tiefling. They have made an Aasimar an Aasimar. And there is very little variance in what they are. They just are. It's a stock a race that you can use, and that's all it is, a stock race. So it's basically cookie cutter, mold, boom. Is it a bad thing? I don't know. It depends on you as a player. I like to have variety in them. In other words, I know there are a ton of different evil outsiders, from demons, daemons, demodans, onis. There are a lot of different evil creatures. So why would I just want to call it a Tiefling and leave it there? I wouldn't. Call me silly as a GM. Kind of the same as out of the blood of shadows. What are the different blood of shadows that you can come up against? There's quite a few. Hang on here. There are several different blood of shadows that are introduced in here. There are the Fetchlings, the Darkborn, and of course the Wei-Yang. So why would I want to just leave it at one race? I wouldn't. I like the variety. And the same with angels. What different type of angelics are there? There are quite a few heritages for Aasimar. And I think they're cool because each one's very different. You got the Agathions, the Angelkin, the Archons, the Azadas, the Gerudas, the Peri. So why? And again, I pose that question to you from my own experience. I find I don't like cookie cutter. I never have. I do not like cookie cutter, easy to run things. What that says is, it'd be like saying I take an artist, and an artist is an artist is an artist, and so I'm going to stick you in the artist box. Or it would be like saying I take an engineer, and an engineer is an engineer is an engineer. Or if we want to go to races in real life, it'd be like saying an African is an African is an African, which is a bunch of horse crap, as we all know. Or a European is a European is a European. Each is very uniquely different. All of them have unique qualities to them. Each are influenced by their cultural or their type of heritage. Why would you want to just stick them all into one little nice box and say, here? It just doesn't make any sense. So understand, I hit that because that is the one thing I wish D&D would change more than anything, is the generics. Because some of the generics, I get it on the classes, okay? You want to have generic classes to make it easy to play, fine. But expand your races. Allow people a lot of variety. That's why you see a lot of 5e DMs and GMs, because they may be called either way, see them take Pathfinder races and convert them to 5e. Same with archetypes, same with... There's a reason why these conversions and homebrews go on, because they like certain aspects of a certain system. They may not love all of it, but they love certain parts of it. And the variety, I think, was one thing that everybody liked. I truly do. All right, so let's get into a little bit today. We're going to talk about those 4 types. Well, actually, we're going to talk about a variety of different types. I'm going to start and go through the different types, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about each, and then really get into the, as a GM, how do you run them and how are their personalities as a whole? Because again, I think everybody assumes that, gee, Aasimar are accepted, Tieflings are accepted, Shadowborn are accepted, Dhamphir are accepted. No. Like most societies, including in real life, if you are different, there's a lot of stigmas that comes with it. Some of them good, some of them bad. In most cases, if you're running a Blood of an Aasimar, or you're running a Fiend, which is a Tiefling, or you're running a Darkling, or some sort of shadow race, or you're running a Skinwalker, or you are running a Dhamphir, people vilify you. You are the demon from outside. You are the unknown. You are the unfortunate blessing that came to their village that curses them. That is how in most of these medieval worlds it's going to be seen. Now, again, mind you, as you go up towards the more modern eras, the steampunk eras, and the gunslinger areas, there's still some of that stigma. It's a little more acceptable, but really still not. They still look at that as some sort of an abomination that has come about. Now, as you get into more modern times, like Shadowrun, and of course the modern day and age, which is a little bit before Shadowrun, a lot before, or you get into some of the other worlds that are way more advanced. So the systems like Mutants and Masterminds, or the systems like other type of hero systems, the hero system, or you get into some space opera ones like Traveler and some of the others. Now, yes, you're accepted, but you're kind of like an alien. And the xenophobes are really not loving you still. The pure races, the xenophobes, they don't like you. And the ones that are more alien, it depends on what kind of alien you most resemble. They may like you, they may not like you. You could be ugly to them, you could be beautiful to them. Either way, you're exotic. So understand, when you choose this as a player, or when you run this as a GM, there's a lot of stigmas, and we'll go into those. So we're going to hit a couple things. So let's start with the Blood of Angels, okay? These are Aasimars, most commonly known as Aasimars. And one of the things that I really love is an Aasimar is not an Aasimar is not an Aasimar. There is a set of ability scores. Now, again, I'm going to use the Pathfinder ones as the base because, again, you guys know I come from that world. You can adapt these into any system you want, however you want. Just look at the rules and see how you would blend them. But they have a page that's on Aasimars. That is just the Aasimar racial traits. Okay? And what they go through is that you have a better wisdom and charisma. Now, that's just base. Depending on what blend of Aasimar, that will change. Okay? You are an outsider. You are automatically considered an outsider subtype. So, if there are weapons that affect outsiders or certain things that affect these different types of outsiders, they're going to affect you and they're going to do extra damage to you. So that is a drawback off the board. They're human size, so they're somewhere between 4.5 feet to almost 8 feet of what they fall into. They have a base speed that's pretty normal. It's the 30-foot base speed. They do have skills. Now, those can vary depending on what rule variants, but they start out with a base one. So those of you that just want to play the base one, it's a +2 to diplomacy and perception. Now, again, you want to modify those. I believe those are both skills that are in 5e. I know they're in 4e. But 5e, you may want to affect that. Now, in most of the other systems, most people have the diplomacy or the perception. It may be called influence. It may be called by other names. But that's what they get the pluses to. They do get spell-like abilities. They can use daylight. They conjure daylight. Now, again, that can vary. Depends on if you become a fallen Aasimar. Not every Aasimar is good. And that's the first assumption. Everybody assumes that these side races are all one alignment. They are not. Not even close. They have a celestial resistance, and this is pretty common across the board between fiends and angels, which is the acid resistance of 5 points, cold resistance of 5, and electricity. Now, the fiends have fire, I believe, in theirs. So what does that say? You take less damage from fire-based items, coal-based, in this case, acid-based items, coal-based items, and electricity-based items. They have to do 5 points before harming you in any way, shape, or form. They give you the languages, the base languages you can work with, but you get common and celestial, because celestial is the realms that are out there in the good side of things. They give you your favorite deities, your favorite religions, and then some names and other things that you can use in that world. Now, as you convert that, you can change that. I do say keep the names, because the names are really cool and pretty synonymous, no matter whether you want to use it in D&D, Dungeon World, Modern World. They just have a real exoticness to them. Hopefully that's coming in clear. I know I got to get better cameras, and I saw the mics now that I want to get. The Blue Rhino are now $89 on sale eventually. Believe me, guys, as the years go on, I will get better equipment. Okay, so what is the stigma of the angels? Well, you got to think about this. Now, take a look at this creature. If you saw this creature coming up to you as a normal townsperson, what would you do? I'm using the Christian or the Catholic symbol, but whatever your symbol you do, you will do the symbol. If it's the pentagram or pentacle or whatever you want to use, you'll be doing that because you're freaked out by them in general. And basically, they come about from either going to the plane of positive energy, whether you're carrying a child, or being impregnated by an outsider, or just some odd event leading to it in the blood. They are made fun of. Think about it. If somebody saw this with the tail as a kid, kids are going to make fun of them. So Aasimars come up as vilified creatures. Okay? And just mind you, this is a really good thing right here, as they say. While all of this can make childhood uncomfortable for an Aasimar, it is admittedly rare for Aasimars to find themselves as truly outcasts. Aasimars are inherently appealing and valuable for a variety of reasons, and thus, even when cast out by one social group, they tend to fall in with another. If children are jealous and refuse to play with them, there are likely adults who will value their company. That's the nice thing about the Aasimars. They still have some value, though they are strange. And again, adolescents in this thing, they use the time in their lives to sort out their roles and try to figure out where they fit in. And I think that's really the biggest thing about an outsider blood. They don't know where they fit into the scheme of life. Sometimes they curse their progenitors and become evil. Sometimes they just are disgusted by the fact that they're stereotyped, so they become neutral or chaotic neutral and self-serving. Or they can be good, and they see that they have a divine role in life. Don't take every Aasimar and just mold them into one. They're not. It is all dependent on the reactions. Think about it. When we as people have tragic events in our life, it leads us to go one of many directions. Aasimars are no different. They're just held that way because of their inherent beauty and their inherent exoticness. Okay. Now, one of the things I love about the Aasimars is they give you a lot of things. One of them is they have variant Aasimar abilities. And that's why I suggest if you don't have this book, getting this book. It's on pages 18 through 19. So, some Aasimars are blessed or cursed with unusual abilities. GMs may customize their Aasimar NPCs by the following chart, and you roll a percentage. You can also do this for your players. Now, I would take away a talent or ability from the base stock to give them this. I would not give them all the other abilities. And it just makes them very powerful. And I think I've got in fact, I've got an Aasimar, and he likes to fly. He floats above the ground. He had to give up something else for that. And I am real staunch about that. I didn't let him in the beginning of the first time he played one, and it got way too balanced one direction. So I am very much for the trade one to get one type of thing. I like this because there's a lot of different things. Let me throw you out some examples that make a difference. You gain a +4 ratio bonus on knowledge religion pertaining to the deity of your choice, so whatever deity they choose to follow. Once per day, you can exhibit a burst of speed moving as if your land base were at 50 feet for 1 round. So much quicker bursts. You get a +2 ratio bonus to saving throws versus spells and spell effects that would cause you to become dazzled. You gain a +2 ratio bonus on sense motive checks. You gain a fire resistance of 5, so there's that fire resistance. You can sense when a creature is pregnant and standing within 10 feet of you. Pick one weapon that normally deals lethal damage, and you can do non-lethal. You can mimic the sound of any animal perfectly. They're just cool little things, but they're really helpful. And I find that these things can, really balance your player in a little bit of a different way, so you're not the standard one out of the mold. Let's look at the heritages. I like this, and I'm especially a huge fan of heritages. Here's why. Not every Aasimar comes from an angel. They can come from archons. They can come from other things. There are more than one type of celestial being. So there's going to be differences and variances, okay? So you got the Agathian, called the Idlekin. The Idlekin have bestial aspects, so they mimic their bestial progenitors like their Agathians, okay? They get a +2 con and charisma compared to the +2 wisdom and charisma. So you notice the charisma doesn't go away. That stays pretty constant, but some other things shift. They also gain the ability to summon nature allied 2 instead of the daylight ability. Okay, so there's some differences. Angel Blood are called Angelkin. They have the +2 strength and charisma. They also gain the Alter Self spell-like ability, so they look a little different than what they would normally look like, because they're very stark creatures. Lawbringers, or the Archon types. The Archons get a +2 con and wisdom instead of the charisma. All right, and then they have a continual flame ability that they can use. The Azadas. Okay, so the Azadas have a +2 dex and charisma. I like that because the Azadas are fast. And so if you want to do more of a stealthy type of creature, they make sense. And they also gain glitter dust because they're capricious in nature. The Garudas, or the Plumekin. The Garudas are almost the bird-like creatures. They also gain the dex and wisdom, but they gain a see invisibility. I love that, especially when you're running around against enemies and you want to see invisible things. These become invaluable for that. Parry Blood. The Parries are kind of a divine fire nature, and they get a +2 intelligence and charisma, and they gain pyrotechnics. So a little bit more of the flame base. Again, 6 different subtypes that give you a lot of variety that mimic the ones that are there. So keep that in mind when you're doing these. Don't make them all picture same, okay? Same with the Blood of Fiends. Now we're going to hit the Blood of Fiends. I'm not going to read through all the Tiefling abilities like I did the others. I'm just letting you know that that's there in these books. Again, they have the same type of thing. These guys are vilified much more. So they are literally the outcasts of society. And you see that really in Pathfinder and the Inner Sea. They're kind of looked down on it with the exception of a few countries. Okay. Now, some of the other things they can animate skeletons. They can speak 2 additional languages of extraplanar deities. Once per day, you can move double your normal movement for a round. You possess claws that you treat as natural weapons. You gain a DR2 to bludgeoning, a DR2 to slashing. There's just a lot of... It's the same type of chart that was on there for the Aasimars, but again, it allows you to customize them. And again, I would take something away to get something. Now, I'm a believer. Some people like to play Tieflings with tails and horns and the skin colors different. That's fine. The more exotic you are, the more demonic you look, the more of an outcast you are, except for in those countries where you are that. Now, even in some of those countries, you're still looked down on as a half-blood because you have human blood in your veins, or orc blood, or halfling blood, or gnome blood. It is not a plus. It is seen even by the outsiders as you are tainted. Same kind of with the Angelkin. You are tainted. Now, what are the heritages? You have the Asura. The Asura Vaughn, which are called the Fault Spawn. They have a +2 dex and +2 wisdom and -2 intelligence. And they gain hideous laughter. So let's look at the Asura. That's an Asura. They have the tongue. It's kind of a nasty, devilish looking creature. The Daemon Spawn or Grim Spawn. These guys are really stark and would really stand out. And the Grim Spawn are basically, they have the Death Knell ability, +2 dex, +2 intelligence, and -2 wisdom. You have the Demodand. So remember I talked about Demodand spawn. And these have the +2 con and wisdom. They're much more resistant and not as intelligent. And they gain Bear's Endurance because of that ability to be pretty tough. There's the Pit Spawn, which are the demons, like the Pit Fiends. Okay, they get a +2 strength, +2 charisma, -2 intelligence, and they gain Shatter as a spell-like ability instead of their other darkness ability. You have the Devil Spawn, which +2 con charisma, or +2 con and wisdom and -2 charisma. And the Hell Spawn have pyrotechnics. Now it's funny that they took away from the charisma and then gave them diplomacy as a class, innate class ability. The Div Spawn, so the evil Jinn, so the Ifrit type of divs. They get the +2 dex, the +2 charisma, the -2 intelligence, but they gain misdirection as their ability. The Chitons, so the pierced Chitons, or Shackleborn. They gain +2 con, charisma, and -2 wisdom, and they gain web as a spell-like ability. Now I love this because the Tieflings have much more diversity than the good beings do. The Oni Spawn, or Hunger Seed. I love that because of the animes I watch. These guys gain a +2 strength, wisdom, and a -2 charisma, and they have alter self, so they can blend in a lot easier. The the Clippeth Spawn, which is another type of demon, if you remember, one of the original demons. +2 strength and wisdom, -2 intelligence, and they gain blur. So they're called the Motherless. And then the Rakshasa. They gain the detect thoughts and a +2 dex, charisma, -2 wisdom. I love how they went through a lot of different varieties with them. All of them very uniquely different as evil creatures, but every culture has their demons and devils. So depending on the culture you're trying to fit into, these can be kind of interesting, especially in their features. Why do I mention these? Because I think they're important. And I'm mentioning Aasimars and Tieflings because they're the most commonly played. There are other things. Now, I'm going to touch the Dhamphir, probably over the Skinwalker, because again, it's a more commonly played one. The Dhamphir are interesting. And you can pick different heritages. So you've got the different heritages depending on what your progenitors are. So they have a lot of different heritages with them. So keep that in mind as you look at this and you go into your Dhamphir. Every one of them is different. You have the Jiangxi born, the Moroi born, which are more of your Count Dracula type, the Nosferatu, and the Vitala. And each is different. The Rushi, which is the Jiangxi born, has a +2 dex, +2 intelligence, and -2 wisdom. They gain the ability to erase as a spell-like ability, and they get -1 on sonic effects versus the light effects. Okay. The Moroi born, or the Svetoker, are +2 strength, +2 charisma, because they're much more charismatic, -2 con. They gain obscuring, like the obscuring mist, and they take a -1 on positive energy damage. So they don't do well at positive energy. The Nosferatu, or Ancient Born, gain a +2 strength, +2 wisdom, -2 con, and they gain doom. And then the Vitala born, the Ajapakana, are +2 dex, +2 wisdom, -2 intelligence, and they gain comprehend languages. The thing about each of these is they're uniquely different in look and they're uniquely different in thinking, because all those different vampire cults are very different. Don't limit your players and don't limit your NPCs. Throw in some monkey wrenches. I'm a believer of look at what you're trying to accomplish and where your players are going. What would be most common? What would be uncommon? Sometimes an uncommon is interesting. So sometimes in a diabolic country or a diabolical country, to throw in a chaos-driven demonic as a Tiefling throws a monkey wrench into everything. In fact, they're a true outcast because not only are they not diabolical, they think quite opposite. And not every one has to be evil. Not every kind of Tiefling has to be evil. They can be good. Not every Aasimar has to be good. They can be evil. I love that in a couple of the modules in Paizo that I found, the Aasimars were quite evil, and they were quite nasty and vindictive critters. And it was really cool because the players would automatically think these are good beings. They're not. They're twisted and contorted, just like these other creatures. What are some things to remember? Number one, in my experience, don't fall in the stereotype. Don't play them to the stereotype. Read about them, get the material, and read about how the cultures in your world view these type of creatures. Not every system views them the same. Okay. There's a system that I have called Shattered that's going to be very soon coming to print. Shattered RPG, the devils are the vampires kind of take over, and some of the biomechanoids are more vilified. So a daemonic, a Tiefling would fit in quite well in a culture like that if you can convert them. An angelic may not. They may be vilified by the creatures on that world. So keep that in mind. Don't play them stereotypical, number one. Number two, understand the race. Understand its strengths and weaknesses. So many people choose a creature for its physical strength or its damage resistance or other things. And they miss out on other abilities that are really pretty cool and would set it apart for certain classes and work much better. For me, a damage resistance is nice on a spellcaster. However, the caster abilities and how it affects and infuses them is more interesting to me. And plus the diplomacy that plays in. So maybe your spellcaster always isn't going on the offense. Maybe they're convincing and working with people in a way. And so they need some of those abilities. So keep that in mind. Number three, don't try to metagame with these things. Okay, I know some of you love the race, and to me, this is the catch-22 of both GMs and players. You pick the races you really like, and you run them. So there's no other exotics. There's no other types that are played. So okay, so now you got Aasimars and Tieflings. Have you ever thought of a Shadowborn? Have you ever thought of a Skinwalker? You ever thought of a Dhamphir? Have you ever thought of a vampire? Have you ever thought of a werewolf? Of course you have. Have you ever thought of a Fetchling? Or a Darkling? Or a instead of the Duergars, a Darrow? Most haven't. Most don't like to run them around. So take some time in that. And then last but not least, realize how they're viewed by a culture. Really realize how that country and that area is and set up the view for that so your players understand if they choose it, there may be some stigmas that go along with it or some pluses. Certain countries revere these type of creatures, others hate them. Depends on where you're at. Depends on how superstitious the area is. So keep those things in mind. I'm at about 30 minutes, a little longer than I wanted. I normally keep it at 20, but I hope this helps. I wanted you to realize what's out there, what can be played. Don't play them to the stereotypes. There's a lot of different types. And again, next time I'll probably split things up a little more into more material, but I thought I'd hit all these because they kind of all fall into that outsider type of genre of creatures. And I hope you have a great week of gaming. Thanks again. If you got any questions, thoughts, please leave them at the end of it and any suggestions. Thanks and have a great week gaming.